It's time to stitch Bella's Boutique on our Twilight Boulevard bench pillow. Bella's Boutique is on page 10. I have all of my fabrics backed with interfacing and I have my batting. As a reminder, this was prepped a year or so ago, and so my batting has been cut exactly to size. Out of the embellishment kit, I will be using the white felt, the purple and black glitter HTV, and vinyl. Now for the glitter HTV, it always comes with a clear carrier sheet, and that needs to be removed. I removed it from the black, and you just simply peel. I'll peel it from the whole sheet, and I will use that and then put the rest back in the embellishment kit. I don't cut my embellishments to size. Now for the vinyl, in the embellishment kit, it comes with just regular clear vinyl. Recently I purchased a roll of vinyl that has these little mylar pieces in, and so I think I'm going to use this for the windows. That would be cute. All right, let's get stitching Bella's Boutique. I've opened my USB and I am going to open my combined files folder. I have merged the background quilting and the embroidery file in software. However, you can bring in the background quilting and then the embroidery file, making sure to move the little house down towards the bottom of the background quilting. I've already taken care of that in software. So I'm going to open my combined files folder and choose the Bella Boutique, and I will hit set. I have everything combined, and I am going to rotate. I am using my 9.5-inch hoop, and I have a new strip of stabilizer, which is muslin. I have all of the excess towards the top or back of my hoop, and so if I choose embroidery and then go to layout and rotate, I'll rotate this 90 degrees and move it all the way down. And then the top part that I have still attached is just the stabilizer that I will save for my next hooping. I will select OK, and then I like to stitch on the minus plus needle. I'm going to stitch the placement for the batting. I'm going to place my batting and place my fabric. I will run the tack down of the fabric and then the background quilting. This block has a lot of applique. You can tell by all of the fabric pieces that I had, and I am just doing traditional applique. I will run the placement line, place my fabric and tack it down and trim it. And then of course there will be little details of embroidery here and there, but it starts at this top, kind of the chimney, and will just work the way down. So for all of the regular fabric pieces, I will just continue to work. And when I get to some of the embellishments like the felt is for the little sign, and some of the glitter, I will talk more about that. But let's start working on this cute house. It's time to place the purple glitter and make sure that that clear carrier sheet has been pulled off. I'm just going to place it over and tack it down and trim like a normal applique. Sometimes when you use glitter, you trim a little bit farther away from the tack down line because it's a raw edge applique. However, this glitter is going to have a decorative stitch, so I will trim it close to the stitching line. After trimming, I need to cover with a pressing cloth and press for about 15 seconds. Now I have one of those, I call them jump stitches. They're really technically not a jump stitch, but they are a stitch that doesn't start where it's supposed to start. And it's getting ready to do the little door or the little window on this little chimney. And if you note, my little green plus sign is way up by the buckle on the hat that just stitched. And if I look over here, you can see there is a arch shaped window, which it's going to do, and then there's a line right above it, and that should not be there. And the only reason that I really noticed or paid attention is because I know it's ready to do the window, but look where my needle is. It's way up by the buckle, which then of course led me to looking at the screen. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I will just use my +1 until it jumps down to where it needs to be. And then I'll show you on the actual chimney where my needle is, which is right under the buckle, and where it should be. So I'm just going to use the +1, and it's going to do those few locking stitches that it does at the beginning of any design, and then you'll hear it jump. And so you can hear that jump, and now let me show you where the needle is. So now the needle is way down here where it needs to be versus up here, and that would have just locked in this yellow thread and then made a huge long jump stitch that I would have had to cut, and I would have had a little knot. And I'm not sure if it would have been on the actual buckle or if it would have been on the hat. And sometimes those little tiny locking stitches, there's 4 or 5 of them, are hard to get out. So I'm glad that I caught that. All right, let's continue. Now the next step is to place the clear vinyl over the window. Again, I am using my vinyl that has these little mylar specks in it. It's so tiny. I mean, it's barely bigger than my fingernail. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but I'm going to use this. I'm just going to hold it, and it's going to tack down. However, I could tape it. That's probably a little bit wiser because it is slippery. So I'm going to tape it, and I do need to make sure that I have a little bit over so that I can trim a nice even edge. This will tack it down, but the edge won't have any additional stitching. The next step is for the little sign, and this is felt from the embellishment kit, and it does say to change the bobbin to black, and because there is black writing, it's small, it's on felt, I am going to go ahead and change that bobbin. So with the felt, it's going to do a placement line. I'll place my felt, tack it down, and then it needs to be trimmed, but this is raw edge applique, and there won't be any other stitching on top of the edge. So I will try to trim it nice and neat and finish stitching the words out. I'll change back to a white bobbin when it does the name Bella's, because that's going to be in purple thread. All right, so let's stitch the cute sign. Now this glitter needs to be trimmed a little bit farther away because it is raw edge applique. This little piece of glitter that we used for the hat had a decorative outline, and so I trimmed it right next to the stitching. This one is a little bit different, so I will trim it just like I did the felt sign, just a little bit away, and then we'll press it. The next 6 steps are going to be for some applique pieces for the bottom level of the house, the roof, and then the first part of the door. These little swatches that have the little lines means that thread color doesn't matter. These will be covered up eventually with satin stitching. I put white, and I know it might be a little bit hard to see on our background because it's just cream, but the reason I'm using white is because that's going to be the first thread that I need next to be seen, and that's going to be on top of the glitter, the black glitter for the door. All right, so I'm just going to run through all of these, and for the glitter door, I will do that the same as I did the hat and the roof glitter. I'll place it down, trim it, and then press it. And this door will also be a raw edge applique, and so I'll trim that about 1/8 of an inch from the stitching line. The next step is going to be for this little peak of the roof over the door. It also uses the black glitter, but the reason they did the door and the roof separate is that this needs black thread. The door had the white stitching and this does not, so that's why they put those two in separate steps. And then after doing the glitter, then it's going to be the windows, the applique, and for the vinyl, again, I'm going to use that vinyl that has the mylar in it, and instead of regular clear vinyl. So while I'm pressing this little piece of glitter, it's actually going to have cover stitches on this top part of the roof, and it looks like the only part that is not going to have any kind of satin stitching are parts of these sides. And it's interesting too that the shape is different. It's not symmetrical, but it looks symmetrical when it's done. So I think it's only these two little sides that will not be covered. The bottom will be covered with satin stitching, as well as a cute little roof that kind of mimics this in satin stitching. So I did just try to make it nice all the way around, but I find that interesting that the shape is not symmetrical, but the final outcome is. All right, so I'm going to press this and then we'll go to the windows. The windows are coming up, and it says that the thread does not matter to do the tack down. And at first I was going to do white because one of the windows has white satin stitching and one has black. I have my black thread in from the roof, but then looking at the directions, I think I'm going to go ahead and keep my black thread in because it shows, of course, one again will be covered in black satin, and then the one window, the top window, that will be a white satin stitch, then gets the vinyl placed over it, and then a kind of a decorative stitch like this window up here that runs down the center. So I think that doing a black tack down will be fine, and the satin stitches are usually dense enough to cover that. So I'm going to try the black for both of those windows. Here is another one of those big, what I'm calling jump stitches. It should not go across that window. And I didn't catch it. I just didn't catch it. So I need to go ahead and trim that. All right, and that should be fine because there's going to be satin stitching, but that should not be there. And because satin stitching has a lot of underlayment, I'm not going to go back, even though I'm just a couple stitches in. I don't need to worry about that. All right, so I'm just going to continue. I'm going to trim the vinyl about 1/8 of an inch outside, and that is raw edge applique. There will be no other stitches on the edge of the vinyl. And then the last several steps are just going to be adding some detail. It's a color change on every step, but it's just a bunch of the cute little details like on the window and the window seals, some more stitching on the roof and the house and the foundation, and it's just to finish up all of the raw edges that we have and then add more details. All right, let's finish this cute little boutique. I was gonna like the lighter orange for the satin stitching on the house, but I don't like it as much as I thought I did, so I am going to change to the darker orange. And I've already started, so if I use my up arrow, it will just take me to the start of this step, and I can start over with my other orange. So I was doing the little roof, and it, you know, doesn't look good right here, and I wasn't really paying attention, but what I think happened, I've had this happen in another project with the vinyl. It hits the vinyl and doesn't let the foot go as far as it needs to go. And I am going to restitch this portion. I'm going to raise my foot to clear that and hopefully smooth that out a little bit. So I'm just going to go back stitches. I'm going to go to the start and then forward through that, you know, the ending until I get maybe about right here, and then stitch just past it, and I'm gonna see how that works. So I got to the point on my design to start, and I have changed my foot height. I put it up 2 notches, which is, you know, quite high, and I lowered my speed all the way down. So let's see how this works. So I stitched it, and the foot height definitely made that. So now you can see that that satin stitch is even instead of, you know, not coming all the way out to the full width. But I want to note that this window is not centered, and it's not centered in the design. I can tell by looking at my screen and the picture that it's not centered, and it really should be. There shouldn't be this much space on this side and just a tiny bit. That should be more centered. Now this window is centered over the door, so it's really not the window that's not centered. It's this peak. But remember, the black glitter was not symmetrical, so I don't know, maybe it's supposed to look kind of wonky because it's a Halloween house. I mean, look at the chimney. So I don't know, maybe that's how it's supposed to look. All right, so there is just a couple more steps. So I'm done, but on the bottom of this little porch, I can see my black glitter, and I thought I got it pretty close when I trimmed it, but apparently I did not get it close enough. So I am going to try to trim this black off. I may go over that again, especially if I end up cutting. Although I don't know if a second layer would cover it, or I may just leave it. Although I think I might have just cut some threads. I think I'm going to go over this. I did have a problem, and I went over this bottom. You can see it, the satin stitching really should be over I might just do this whole thing again, even though I did the bottoms. I raised my foot because I think it was hitting, I don't know, it shouldn't, I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to raise my foot back up to the 0.1, and I'm going to stitch this whole white piece again, and it'll just give it more coverage, and we'll see if it fixes some of that. All right, I'm gonna do that one more time. So I went over it, and I think overall it looks much better. Now on this side, now that wasn't a problem at the beginning, I can see some of the threads that was the underlayment, but I think when you look at it far away, you're not going to notice. Overall, these look much better. Now I do know, because these bottom pieces have like 3 layers of the satin stitching, they come a little bit below the foundation of the house, which in, you know, looking at the design, they're not supposed to, and I don't know if that's just because I've added so many layers. So when I get ready to sew this together, I will have a little bit of the bottom of these pillars in the seam allowance. I'm going to try to sew, you know, right along the base. But overall, it looks really cute. It's a cute block, and there is going to be some. There's the eyelets for the fairy lights, which I don't think I'm going to do. I'll talk about that later. But then there's a cute little banner, 3D banner, that will be added. We'll do that at the end. This was really cute. It was a lot of work for this cute little house, but so fun. I love it. All right, so I'm going to take this out. I'm not going to trim any of my blocks. I'm going to trim all 7 at the same time. So I am going to hoop up and start on another block.